Welcome to our 2020 Crash Wine Education. I'm Mari Coyle, winemaker here at ONEHOPE. Undoubtedly my favorite time of year. I love to engage with our community and share more about wine. In fact, since January, my word for 2020 has been share. It's helped me come back to my intention to share more about our wines, my purpose, and inspire a sense of generosity within our community to share wine and give hope. Today, I'm super excited to share a panel of extraordinary women in wine. One thing we've all learned about wines is that rare makes extraordinary. Just think about those matryoshka dolls that represent the most rare of wines with the smallest doll. Speaking of rare, consider these stats in the wine industry. Fewer than 12% of head winemaker positions are filled with women, and less than 15% of master sommelier achievements have been awarded to women. And even fewer sommelier titles are represented by women of color. So who are these women and what makes them extraordinary? Let's find out about the breakthroughs that led to their success while we discuss California wines and get a few leadership tips along the way. Let me introduce Emily Wines, Master Sommelier and Vice President of Wine and Beverage Experiences at Cooper's Hawk Winery and Restaurants. Not only has Emily achieved the highest distinction from the Master Court of Sommeliers and is one of only 149 individuals in the Americas to earn the designation of Master Sommelier, she's also one of just 2 women and 15 professionals who have been awarded the prestigious Remy Krug Cup. This means she has passed all 3 sections of the exam on her first attempt. Just so you know, most candidates will sit for this exam 2 or 3 times, and some take it as many as 6 times. Along with her vast knowledge for wine, she makes wine approachable and has a passion for learning and educating the large staff at Cooper's Hawk Restaurants. Also joining us today is Jessica Tomei. Jessica is Senior Director of Winemaking for the Wine Group and Head Winemaker for Cupcake Wines. You probably recognize that name. Jessica has spent more than 20 years chasing through vines in the world's finest wine growing regions. She lets every vineyard shine and creates rich and delectable wines. Jessica brings the truest grape expression for each cupcake varietal. She's traveled the world, completed more than 20 harvests, working at vineyards in Italy, Chile, and all over California. Fun fact, Jessica and I were both interns at Gloria Ferrer Champagne Caves in 2000 harvest, 20 years ago, and I've loved following her career and path to success. I'm excited to welcome Tanya Pitts, sommelier at One Market in San Francisco. She's been in the food and beverage industry for over 20 years. In fact, Tanya's fine art studies are what relocated her to the Bay Area from St. Louis, Missouri. After 3 years, Tanya was running the wine program for Loretta Keller at Bizou Restaurant. It was with Loretta Keller that Tanya realized her true passion for wine. She's worked in so many notable restaurants throughout the Bay Area and been featured in Wine and Spirits magazine, Tasting Panel, and numerous other industry publications. She's also a wine judge. Needless to say, after her wine industry breakthrough, Tanya only paints for fun now. It's my pleasure to introduce you to 3 of the most dynamic women in wine. Their commitment to excellence in our industry is enviable, and their charisma and ability to share their passion is inspiring the next generation of wine lovers and professionals alike. Just like fine wines, these women show us that rare is extraordinary. Please welcome our panelists. This is so much fun to have the 3 of you and your background, deep roots in the wine industry, and a lot of energy and pizzazz and passion to share. I wanted to kick it off by having each one of you tell me a little bit about your current role in the wine industry. They're all so different and unique. Maybe add a favorite part of your job, and if you had a breakthrough moment on your journey to get there. Emily, let's start with you.
Yeah. So I'm the Vice President of Wine and Beverage Experience for Cooper's Hawk Winery and Restaurant, which mostly means that I get to hang out with people and drink wine. So I've been in the restaurant business for my pretty much all of my career. And what I do now is really a lot more guest facing marketing, a lot of education, a lot of events, a lot of social media these days, and staff education. It's a lot of fun. I've been in, like I said, I've been in the wine business for a long time. I started out in the luxury industry, and today I'm really at a very, very, very different level of wine. And I guess when you talk about breakthroughs, for me, just the opportunity to turn people onto wine who may be a little uncomfortable with it has been really the greatest joy of my professional life. I used to work with very high-end wines, and even in a restaurant that dealt with that tier of wines, like finding somebody who was uncomfortable and just introducing them and making them feel comfortable with wine is really a thrill. And knowing that there's a wine for everyone, and meeting people at the point that they're at in their wine journey is pretty rewarding.
I love that. I love how passionate you are about wine education and sharing. You have a big team of servers throughout the restaurants that you're constantly working with to inspire and ignite a passion for wine and storytelling. And I think it's really exciting to hear that part of your journey and story, how you're just continuing to give back to people who are new to the wine industry.
Yes.
Awesome. Jessica, how about you? It's been a long time, exactly about 20 something years since we worked at a little old winery together as harvest interns, and you've had quite an incredible path too. How did you get to where you are today?
Well, I think I love the internship that we did together, because it really prepared me for the wine world in general, because at that point I was at UC Davis and really studying the chemistry part of it, more of the enology side of it. And then with that internship, we were able to spend a lot of time in the vineyard. We were producing the wine. We were in the lab. We were, doing pump overs, bottling. And then, it really solidified my love of the wine industry. And then after that, I worked in Italy. One of the main reasons I wanted to get into the wine business was to travel. And so I was, I was able to go to Italy, and then later to do a harvest in Chile, and then later to actually work in Chile for a few years. At that point, I had my first child. We moved back to California. My husband and I started our own wine brand, and then imported wine from Chile. We started importing wine from Italy and other European countries, and then started distributing in California. So suddenly we were in the marketing and selling world, and knocking on doors. At that time, we had a huge Chilean portfolio, which is not always the easiest wine to sell. And so we learned a lot. We started in 2006 and then went through the recession. That was another learning experience, having our own business at that time. And then I started to consult again for winemaking, and then worked for nakedwines.com, which is a different way of selling wine. And then now I'm currently the winemaker for Cupcake Vineyards. My title is actually Senior Director of Winemaking for the Central Coast for the wine group. And one of our major brands is Cupcake, and I am the winemaker for Cupcake Vineyards. And
That's so cool.
Yeah, the biggest breakthrough moment for my career was, well, it's all been a lot of learning, and I think that my current position, working for a larger company and being able to make a wine that is delicious at a larger volume, and to get it out to throughout the United States at a price point that people can enjoy on a daily basis if they want to, has been very, I'd say I feel successful doing that, because it's, hopefully we're bringing people into the wine, bringing them into being wine connoisseurs, and then keeping them there so that they enjoy, and then they've learned how to explore in different areas of the wine industry.
I love watching this journey too, because it just shows there's no straight path, right, to where we all get to. You could be headed off in one direction in sales and turn over here. And I know it's happened to me. I've been here and there and everywhere, and different countries, and never imagined what was really going to be next. Tanya, I know that you've got a really fun story about how you've gotten to where you are. And I've read in a couple of your recent articles, it was no bed of roses to get there.
No, it was not. And being a woman, and a woman of color, and just not knowing that this was the road that I wanted to take. And very early on, I got into restaurants, but the usual way, you're serving tables. And it was not my intention to stay, but I had always been interested in wine, and that started very early for me, even before I could drink. And once I was able to drink, it's like, wow, this is really cool. This is really delicious. I really, really like wine a lot. But even then, I had not thought of it as a career for myself, or even that it was an option for me, because the people that were around me were mostly men. There was a female chef and a female bartender, but I hadn't really seen any female sommeliers, except for when I went to work at Zuni, was Sylvie Lai, and she was there, which was great. But even still, I hadn't thought about that for myself. And it wasn't until I went to work for Loretta Keller, who owned Vizu at the time, and I was working for her, and she just looked at me one day and said, "You're not supposed to be a captain, you're supposed to be a sommelier. This is what you're supposed to be doing." And one thing led to another, and she needed a wine director and a sommelier at the restaurant, and she gave me the wine list. And that was my first gig, and that's how I learned. And it was great because I had all of these people around me that did mentor me. They may not have been right there on premise with me, but if I had a question, I could go to them and ask them. I could taste wine with them. I could go to tastings, and but even then, so there weren't a lot of women at tastings either, and those that were there were not interested in tasting. It was a completely different world. We're talking about the late 80s, early 90s, and it was a different world. It really was. I'm happy that we're here now.
Oh my gosh, that gave me chills when you said, she said to you, "You're not meant to be a captain, you're meant to be a sommelier, and here's the wine list." Like, there's those moments, right, in life that you get, sometimes that you get, and sometimes you don't, and you're working hard for it, and you don't get that moment. But I'm thankful that you had that moment, and are where you are today. What's your favorite part right now about what you do?
My favorite part, which is why, because I've been on the floor for well over 20 years now, and what keeps me there is interaction with the guest and talking to them about wine and doing food and wine pairings with them and giving someone something to taste that they've never had before, or something completely out of the box for them, and that gleam in their eye, and they light up. And I love that, and I live for it. I really do. And that's what keeps me going, that, and then educating people and having discussions about wine.
Yeah. I love that. At One Hope, we talk a lot about your why because our business is, integrated with this purpose and passion and commitment to make the world a better place. And I know all of you have that too. And so thanks for sharing that why, that special moment that, keeps you up from midnight to educate wine lovers around the world, literally. That's what you've been doing this week.
Yeah.
And I love that moment, that glimmer, that joy that you could see in somebody's eyes when you know that you've communicated with them something that they would love. That's not an easy thing to do.
It's our superpower.
It
is. Look, it is. Emily, it's our superpower.
Yeah.
Jessica, you too. To give something, give someone something that brings them so much pleasure.
It's true. Igniting that spark around wine passion is really, it's addictive. When you see somebody who's like, wine's really intimidating. I don't think that's for me. And then suddenly they're like, oh, that's good. And like, now I know something about it. Now I want to know more. And you see this like passion build. It's really rewarding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is amazing. I always have respect for you as sommeliers, not only for your achievements and your incredible knowledge, which is like a million times more than I could ever imagine knowing about all the wines of the world. Jessica's nodding. We're like, we just kind of make our wine. And, you guys know everything about every wine. It's so cool. And you're constantly learning. And I think it's neat to hear, your why and what kind of keeps you up and keeps you going and keeps you learning, because it is this continuous process. Emily, what would you say your why, like what has really kept you on this path that is just incredible journey of understanding wine?
It's a few things. One of them is that you never stop learning, and I find it really humbling that like I can be a master sommelier and I still all the time have to like stop and learn and investigate more and be curious. And I just feel, I'm always going to end up having moments where I'm like, I don't know anything. But I love that, like the more you learn, the more you realize like there's just no way to know it all. And I think it's exciting to be in an industry that gives you that opportunity to never get bored with it. And then the other side of it, and I've dabbled in some different sides of the wine business, but at the end of the day, I keep coming back to restaurants because I love service. I love showing people a good time. It's not saving lives, just putting a glass of wine in their hands, but sometimes that's a lifesaver.
I was going to say,
it's a great thing.
Well, these days, what I wouldn't give to go into one of the restaurants where you are and enjoy a glass of wine and just say, what do you think I should drink tonight with this meal? That would be pretty incredible.
I think there's also something about wine that's like, like a bottle of wine is something that you can drink it alone, but most likely you're sharing it with somebody. And it's like the way that wine brings people together, usually around a dinner table. It's like the conviviality of the table is, like what that bottle promises. And I think that that's, a really special thing. And it's a great thing to be a part of.
That's really cool. Jessica, you mentioned too a little bit about just the satisfaction of making these incredible wines and getting them out to the customers and seeing, people enjoy them. I think as winemakers too, sometimes it's hard. We don't always get to see the end result. We don't get to see our customers in front of Emily and Tanya saying, oh my gosh, I love this glass of wine. And so, so you mentioned, what keeps you going on this path without getting a lot of that feedback every day?
Similar to what Emily said is that I've always been curious. So I think the continuous learning that we, this is my 20th year, but this is my first year operating in a pandemic. Like we're, that not to make light of it, but it is like every year is something new. And we actually had our pre-harvest meeting today. And one of the things that I love is that every harvest brings new challenges. And I love the production of it. So, it's a busy time of year. But being able to put that everything that happened within that year into a bottle of wine, and then, like Emily said, enjoy it with your family and friends. It's encapsulating, you know, these memories and these moments. And I mean, that's why I love wine. It is so much more than just a beverage. It is, you know, it is the earth, it is the climate, it is the environment, it is the people that are working in the vineyards, working in the cellar, working on the bottling line, working in the restaurants, working, you know, to sell the wine and market. It's a special, I know people, you know, it can be called a product or a SKU, but it's so much more than that. It's, I think that's why I love it. And like I said, like what was interesting, this pre-harvest meeting, was that we were talking about how comforting it is to go into harvest this year, because it's something that we're familiar with and we know. Although we know harvest every year is crazy, it throws things at you and you have to, you know, troubleshoot, but it is comforting to know that it's coming and we're gonna make wine, and we're still gonna put it into a bottle, and we're gonna do it safely. So I think, you know, those are the reasons why, is to do that every, you know, that I don't want to ever stop doing that, making wine.
Yeah. Oh, I hear you. I was just thinking the other day about, you know, just that smell of freshly crushed grapes. And it's just like, oh my gosh, I'm only a couple months away from that. I can't wait. And like you said, it's something you can count on every year. And you know, it's going to be different, but it's going to happen. And it's such a cool process.